Yeah. So when we reach the eighth Karmapa, again, we see a major exponent of Buddha nature theory in the Karmakaju tradition. And to a lot of people, in fact, even to me, he seemed to present a Buddha nature theory that is not fully aligned to the third Karmapa's position almost. Like if you read his commentary on Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, and Chandrakirti being somebody who expounded emptiness as the ultimate and regarded Buddha nature sutras also as expedient provisional teachings and not to be taken as definitive teachings. Mikyo Dorje, the eighth Karmapa, seemed to sort of take that more strongly in his writings on both Madhyamaka and also the Perfection of Wisdom treatise, Abhisamaya Alankara. And I've read how you try to bring the two together, and I think the eighth Karmapa himself also has sort of reinterpreted the third Karmapa to sort of bring their positions in alignment. But do you find any tensions between the two in terms of Buddha nature understanding?
I think the eighth Karmapa's texts, they say sometimes quite different things about Buddha nature. That's what makes it difficult. Also at different periods. Like, for example, one of his earliest texts was the lamp that illuminates or elucidates Shantong, which is basically a commentary on the fourth Vajra point. And also one of his earliest commentaries was his commentary on the Abhisamaya Alankara, which also talks about Buddha nature extensively. And it is said in Pavatsukla Trengma's history that the early teachers of the eighth Karmapa told him he should uphold the Shantong view. So these early texts seem to be more along that line, but when you look at the, as you said, when you look at the commentary on the Abhisamaya Alankara, he does talk about Buddha nature a lot, also in connection with Mahamudra. But a lot of the way he does is what I call Shantong light, which is, so in the Kaji tradition, they call something they call Salva Shantong and Ying Shantong. So you could say luminosity Shantong and expanse or Dhatu Shantong. So he's definitely in that commentary on the Ying Shantong side. So sometimes when he talks about Buddha nature in terms of Shantong, it sounds really more like Rangtong. It's actually very interesting to read, and it's almost like, it's really kind of blowing your mind. But then in other texts later, he says more, you could say, things that are in line with the third Karmapa and more in line with Salva Shantong. But it's scattered throughout his writings. And then, of course, in the end, and his commentary on the Madhyamaka was his last work. And of course, it's not about Buddha nature. So I think that's the main reason why he doesn't really talk about Buddha nature there. But there's an excellent work by Martina Drastic and David Higgins in the Vienna series that's called Buddha Nature Reconsidered. So they basically went through pretty much all of the texts of the eighth Karmapa and checked out, okay, what does he say about Buddha nature? And it's very interesting because their result is, which I agree with, that the Karmapa's own approach is a middle between the polarized positions of Shantong and Rangtong. Like, it tries to harmonize those in a way that combines the virtues of each approach while trying to avoid the pitfalls of each one. So, like, take the best of each and present that as the highest view, while making sure that one doesn't fall into the potential pitfalls that each one may have. And also, that book contains a very interesting short list of 16 points that summarize the view of the eighth Karmapa on Buddha nature. And then the 2 volumes, they spell that out. So that's very helpful, actually. And when you look at these 16 points, then you can see that it agrees actually very much with the third Karmapa. But for the details, I refer to that excellent work.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, what I found striking in your analysis is that you say the 8th Karmapa would rather take a sort of a, or suggest a stance where we don't look at Buddha nature from the sentient being's perspective, but rather look at Buddha nature from the Buddha's or the Buddha nature's perspective. So in that respect, sentient beings don't have Buddha nature because sentient beings don't really exist in reality. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, to me, that was one of the most kind of shocking, but also illuminating things that I read from him, because he puts the whole thing, like he turns it upside down. Because like we always hear that sentient beings have Buddha nature. And in his commentary on the Abhi Samaya Alamkara, he makes a very long argument that sentient beings neither are Buddha nature nor have Buddha nature. So it's like the Yerpa and Yinpa thing, so he denies both. And he basically says it's actually the opposite way around. It's not that sentient beings have Buddha nature or that Buddha nature exists within sentient beings, but it's more that sentient beings exist within Buddha nature. So, and of course, first one thinks, really? But I think it makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, if you understand Buddha nature as some little thing that sits somewhere in our body, that's very limited. But Buddha nature just is like, infinite spaciousness. So how would that ever be possible to be located in a sentient being, which has clear spatial limitations? So to me, it makes a lot of sense to say, it's like the sentient beings are like, and he uses that example, sentient beings are like clouds in the sky. So it's not that the sky, of course, also exists within the sentient being, but the sky is much bigger than the sentient being. And actually the sentient being is an obscuration of the sky. So once the cloud dissolves, then the sky is clearly present and not obscured. And by the way, that very same statement is actually also made by other people, like Longtenpa, for example, several times in his text. The exact same thing. So it's not just the 8th Karmapa.